Geneva, Switzerland, the United Nations has raised a grave alarm. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, has spoken out with deep concern over the escalating violence in Nepal. His remarks come after days of deadly unrest, where young protesters clashed with police, and the anger in the streets has turned into flames. At least 19 people have been killed, hundreds injured, and Nepal's parliament itself has been set ablaze by furious demonstrators. This is no longer just a domestic political crisis. It is now a matter of international human rights and global attention. In his address, Volker Turk did not mince words. He declared, "I am appalled by the escalating violence in Nepal that has resulted in multiple deaths and the injury of hundreds of mostly young protesters, as well as the widespread destruction of property. I plead with security forces to exercise utmost restraint and to avoid further such bloodshed and harm." His words are more than a condemnation. They are a call to pull back from the brink before the violence claims more lives. Yet the scenes emerging from Kathmandu tell a story of fury and frustration. For days, young protesters have taken to the streets, saying they have had enough of corruption, mismanagement and broken promises. A government ban on social media platforms, perceived as an attempt to silence their voices, has only fueled the fire. The burning of Parliament was not simply vandalism. To many, it symbolised the collapse of trust in Nepal's political system. It was a message that the old ways of ruling are no longer acceptable. Turk insisted that the solution to Nepal's turmoil cannot be found in more violence or repression. He stressed violence is not the answer. Dialogue is the best and only way to address the concerns of the Nepalese people. It is important that the voices of young people are heard. Protesters have the right to express peacefully their political frustrations and grievances over corruption and a ban on social media platforms. His remarks highlight a painful truth. The very generation that should inherit Nepal's future now feels disenfranchised and silenced. The protests, led largely by youth, reflect a deep generational divide. Many of Nepal's young people believe they are inheriting a broken system, one marred by corruption, police brutality, and a lack of opportunity. Instead of jobs and stability, they see censorship and repression. The heavy-handed response from security forces, which witnesses describe as brutal, has only strengthened their resolve. Rather than quelling dissent, the crackdown has turned their frustrations into defiance. Turk also addressed disturbing reports of how the crisis has been handled by authorities. He stated, "I have received concerning reports of unnecessary and disproportionate use of force by the security forces. I call for urgent, thorough, transparent and impartial investigation into such acts. I am also disturbed by reports of public buildings, businesses and private residences being attacked and, in some instances, set ablaze. Equally, I am concerned by reports of physical attacks on senior government officials." With this, the UN chief drew a careful balance, condemning not only state violence, but also mob destruction and attacks on officials. The message is clear. Both sides are playing with fire, and both risk dragging the nation deeper into chaos. The events unfolding in Nepal echo its turbulent history. The country has faced conflict before, from the Maoist insurgency that claimed over 17,000 lives, to the monarchy's collapse in 2008, to a fragile series of coalition governments since. Yet today's unrest feels different. This is not the product of warlords or organised armed groups. It is a grassroots uprising, led by young people who feel ignored, betrayed and robbed of a future. Their anger is not tied to one party or ideology, but to a system they see as fundamentally broken. That makes this moment both more unpredictable and more consequential. The international dimension is also significant. Geneva's words may sound diplomatic, but Turk's tone was raw and urgent. He said he was appalled, an unusually emotional word in the language of international institutions. The subtext is clear. If Nepal's leaders cannot restore calm through dialogue and accountability, they risk not only domestic instability, but also international isolation. Foreign aid, investment and trust may evaporate if the state is seen as waging war against its own youth. There are also regional implications. Nepal lies between India and China, two giants with immense strategic interests. Instability in Kathmandu is not just a local affair. It can ripple outward, drawing in external pressures and complicating the balance of power in South Asia. If the crisis continues, Nepal may find itself squeezed even harder by outside forces seeking to exploit its vulnerability. As the death toll rises and anger mounts, The choice before Nepal is stark. On one side, confrontation and repression threaten to plunge the nation into deeper bloodshed, where cycles of violence become impossible to break. On the other side lies the possibility of dialogue, accountability, and reform, a difficult path, but the only one that offers hope for a peaceful resolution. Volker Turk's call reverberates beyond the UN walls in Geneva. It is a message to Nepal's leaders, its security forces, and its young people. The world is watching, and the path of violence leads nowhere. Dialogue is the only bridge left standing. Protesters demand dignity, justice, and a voice. The government demands order and stability. Between them lies the fragile future of a nation of nearly 30 million people. The flames of parliament may have lit up Kathmandu's skies, but they also cast a shadow across the region and the world. Nepal must now decide whether those flames signal the collapse of a system or the chance to rebuild one that finally reflects the hopes of its people.
I'm appalled by the escalating violence in Nepal that has resulted in multiple deaths and the injury of hundreds of mostly young protesters, as well as the widespread destruction of property. I plead with security forces to exercise utmost restraint and to avoid further such bloodshed and harm. Violence is not the answer. Dialogue is the best and only way to address the concerns of the Nepalese people. It is important that the voices of young people are heard. Protesters have the right to express peacefully their political frustrations and grievances over corruption and a ban on social media platforms. I have received concerning reports of unnecessary and disproportionate use of force by the security forces. I call for an urgent, thorough, transparent and impartial investigation into such acts. I'm also disturbed by reports of public buildings, businesses and private residents being attacked and in some instances set ablaze. Equally, I'm concerned by reports of physical attacks on senior government officials.